All right. Well, Bryce Young being benched. I'm not gonna say it's surprising. You know, let's sort of we're gonna go down the whole thing to get to the main culprit. We already know. I think I've done a video of this beforehand, but basically that we all know the blame is to really go on Tepper. There ain't nothing to hide here, being like who is going to be the mystery man behind it all. But I will say that between the mix of dysfunctional owner, I don't even want to say the coaches have been dysfunctional or setting up for failure just because, hell, they haven't stuck long enough in there for it to really matter as of right now. But I was like, but you can blame the owner. I think you can blame the GM. And I was like, I will say that I don't also think that Bryce Young he's able to escape criticism of himself. I was like, but the whole overall thing is basically a shit show. Like, okay, so Bryce Young, I will say that even though they don't help him out at all, he still also is not playing well. You can say confidence shot or whatever you want to say, but at the same time, you sometimes look and you're like, he should have made that pass. He should have had that pass. Like he's missing also easy throws. He's throwing it in the covers where just like those interceptions are like there's three people around. Why would you make that decision? I was like you're late here getting this. It's like even if I was like I understand sometimes the lines break it down, but there'd be times where he has escaped the pocket and it's just like okay he's overthrew that guy or whatever like that. And I was like listen he can be at like which is funny enough of that like the Sam Darnold thing where just like you're just getting like you're just being swarmed so much that you almost have some type of like your internal clock is sped up to where he could just be like, oh snap, I gotta get out of the pocket, I gotta hurry up and just launch it before I get popped again. Cause I was like, he also gets popped quite a bit as well too. I was like, he does take hits that's unnecessary. We're sort of seeing that also with Caleb Williams as well of like those unnecessary hits. And the thing is with Bryce Young is I didn't think that I was like he wouldn't have been he would have probably been my third choice of actually the quarterback. But I was like, but I understood why Carolina took him. I understand why people took him and whatnot. But at the same time, I was like, hindsight being what it is, everybody can say C.J. Stroud, but people were really ragging on C.J. Stroud at the time too, to where it's like he's safe, he's fine. So you couldn't, and I was like Anthony Richardson was unknown really at that. Like he just had all the intangibles of like he's stuff you can't coach, where it's like height, speed, size, and all that other stuff. Well, Bryce Young don't have any of those things. I was like, he is sort of in that mode of a Tua. Or people how they said about Drew Brees. I would even say like Baker Mayfield. I really don't like how they give him the what they say his like they talk about him as Kyler Murray because I'm like no, Kyler Murray is a crazy athlete where it's like yes they're the same height but I'm like he's thicker than Bryce Young. I was like his arm is better than Bryce Young. I was like his improvisation is better than that. I was like he got things that you're just like oh that's sort of what makes him special. Whereas what is supposed to make Bryce Young special is and what he sort of has to do with his height and the speed that he doesn't really have in that same way. Not saying he can't scamper for 10 yards or something like that, but it ain't nothing. So you're like you ain't gonna do no RPOs with him where he gonna actually take the ball and just run unless you're like maybe goal line maybe something like that close to where it's just like oh, okay we just need 5 yards or something. But he's supposed to come in with the accuracy and things like that. Now I will say that hey if you also look at a lot of the quarterbacks that was in his range, I was like Baker. I was like, yes, he did play pretty all right as a rookie. He had a really good second year, and then injury got him in third year. You look at Drew Brees, and I was like, he was not really good for like the first couple of years, and then I was like, I want to say his fourth year, I believe. That's when he sort of got going. I think they also got, and then around the same time they got Phillip Rivers. That's when he also like just became this other quarterback, and then the injury, and then he became Drew Brees, what we know him in New Orleans. I was like Tua. I was like his first 2 years, and you could say some of that is also like coaching, to where it's like you could sort of see it there, and him come from Alabama, but it just ain't click until he got pretty much McDaniels. I mean, he got McDaniels, and then all of a sudden we see what he can be. So I was like, so some of this is where it's like, okay, coaching is a problem, but also it's like, what also is he bringing to the table as well in a lot of these situations. But this is where it goes from Bryce Young and not the stuff he doesn't have, or even when he is playing bad, where it's like those things are sort of inexcusable. Even though like there could be reasons why, but that doesn't mean that you can't get that stuff done. But at the same time, that's also where you start really going to the GM and whatnot, because the GM has been there basically since Bryce Young's been there. So, and I think he was there before. I want to say he was there before as well. Dan Morgan, I think, before they got rid of I forget his name, because he's been like the GM twice there or whatever, and I don't think he did a good job. To be honest, they really haven't really did a good job really GMing even when they had Cam. So yet alone since then or whatever. But you look at all this stuff to basically not set up their team in a way where it's like, okay, cool. I was like, you got Bryce Young, but in that process, you got rid of your best receiver in DJ Moore in order to get him, and several other picks. But then things of like not getting off players that you were going to keep anyway. Whereas like Brian Burns, you could have had 2 first-round picks for him, and I think a second, and you end up basically trading for a second and a fifth. And it's like there was no guarantee that you were going to keep Brian Burns. So it's like, if you even have a small doubt where you just like, I don't think he's going to stay, 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick, I'm not going to lie. I'm like, that dude has to get traded. And you could have basically got the capital back of what you was giving to Bryce Young. And you didn't. I was like, that's a mistake there. I was like, the line hasn't necessarily been great. I was like, it's been better. But I was like, it seemed like the pickups you picking didn't really had to fully help, but I do think it's better. They don't seem like they really utilize running the ball, and I know they get blown out the water in a lot of these games, to where it's just kind of like you have to throw it. But if your quarterback is sort of playing like that, why don't you run the ball more? I don't really see enough screens. I was like with any of the receivers. First of all, they got Miles Sanders and they got Chuba Hubbard. I was like, really good backs. I was like, they're not game changer backs, but they're really good backs. To where it's like you should just like, they really needs to be like a running team, and then let things progress from there. If you feel this way about Bryce Young and he seems skittish and stuff like that, do some things that sort of make some easy layup play. Because I was like, a lot of times it just seems like they're dropping back and they're just waiting for the play to develop, and it's just like, dude, he's about to get blasted. Like your line isn't at that level to where he can just sit there and pat the ball all the time. So I was like, but I also said some of that last year with some of the play calling as well. But you would think that, I guess the thinking process is it'd be different this year, because you got the dude that was in Tampa Bay and you see how their offense run. Well, the other problem with that is the talent that's around. I was like, Mingo's a really good receiver. I was like, Thielen, I was like, he was the top receiver last year, didn't have too much of a choice to be, but I was like, he's really kind of your third he should be sort of your third receiver at this time. Leggett is a rookie receiver, so that's just always just going to take a minute to try to get that going there. And I was like, they got another guy as well too, but also his name escaped me, so that sort of tells you that. I was like, they haven't really had their full collection of tight ends with Thomas and Tremble and whatnot, and I think that would help a bit. I was like in the blocking and the pass game, but still, I was like, you let DJ Chark go, and I was like, I understand everybody, that like DJ Chark, he's not that type of number one receiver, but my thing is that you just sort of need to just keep people. He basically been playing on 1-year deals. You can pony up for it. But I was like, get it, new coach kind of thing. They let Terrence Marshall go, which is another pick they had in the second round from a couple of years ago that they just feel like ain't pan out or whatever like that. So you're getting rid of talent while also not bringing in enough. They should have tried to bring in another veteran wide receiver. I was like, you could. I was like, there are plenty out there to where it's just like you just want to just put enough people around to see what kind of sticks or whatever like that. You sort of seen it with several different types of teams, but then there's the whole thing of the coaching from there. I was like, last year it was supposed to be Frank Wright, McCown. I was like, that was there, and we thought that was going to be a really good situation. Well, he didn't last nothing but 11 games and got fired, which already in itself is like, what is to expect? And this is where we're going to get to the Tepper part at the same time. But what is it to really expect after one year rookie quarterback and basically a new coaching staff there? Like, you could that's at least like trying 2 years. I was like, he hadn't really. I was like, and then look at somebody like Joe Brady, who basically was sort of the scapegoat of being fired early on, I think, underneath Matt Rule. Now he's over here with Buffalo, and Buffalo has looked really good since that switch has been made. I was like, he made it a lot more run-centric game. I was like, and I get it. I think when he first came in, it was sort of the pass. I was like, yes, he was with the Saints at one time, but I feel like he was really pass-heavy when he was with Carolina, but at the same time, you've seen his offense where it's involved, where it's like, oh, let's do our running backs. And he got Josh Allen as his quarterback, and he's like, all right, but we're going to play it this way. And like, you could see how that had evolved. I was like, but he wasn't going to stick around with the coaching staff. I was like, but then you also look at people like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield going other places, and they're playing exceptionally well. And that's where you start to be like, oh, this isn't about Bryce. I was like, it is a bit of the talent and the GM, but now you're just sort of being a franchise where you just are sewage underneath. You're cursed at this point. Kind of feel like you're about to be one of those type of teams that you talk about, whether that's the Commanders, home Redskins, or how Cincinnati used to look before Burrow came through. I was like, in they little spurts, or the Browns before the whole Baker Mayfield thing, where they sort of like they open up and then their backs are sort of being a little bit of the Browns, even though they got talent over there. The Lions before like this regime with Dan Campbell and everybody, like that's where the Panthers are. I was like, and the problem is like, hey, could things turn around? Yeah, except for the main person that's behind all this, Tepper. That's where it's like, hey, you might be stuck. And I was like, just because he's the one that basically you can look at to be like, all these coaches getting fired, him. All these turnstile quarterbacks being changed after a year, him. Think about it. I was like, after Cam, it was Teddy Bridgewater, year, gone. Baker Mayfield, a few games. I was like a few games, because I was like, he didn't really even stick out a whole year, gone. I was like, Sam Darnold, year, gone. Who else they had? I was like, they had PJ Walker, let him go. He's the one that basically said he wants Bryce Young, which means we got to give up all this draft capital to get him, and with our receiver being gone. That's that right there. I was like, the coaching staffs, I was like, look, it's all him. Cause I was like, Frank Wright didn't really want Bryce Young, but I was like, and granted, I was like, the owner can make that decision, but that's something where you got to be sort of in lockstep with your coaches, where it's like, okay, why? Who should we pick? C.J. Stroud was a pick, but so in the end, I was like, overall, I was like, I feel like at least you got to give a big chunk of this to Tepper and the GM. just because I was like, kind of like, even though I can say the GM of like putting talent around, I also don't know what he's able to spend. I was like, cause cause maybe they could have ponied up the money to bring back Brian Burns, but they didn't. Um, I was like, there was a couple other people that just didn't fit their scheme that they decided to give away. I was like, they had Hassan Reddick out, I think at the time. They didn't. They decided to let him go. They didn't bring Javion Clowney until like later on and like basically before the season start. Um, I was like, yeah. I was like, don't get me wrong. They signed the money to get Robert Hunt and stuff on the line or whatever, and that's really about it. I was like, it wasn't a full fledged of like, let's take advantage of the rookie quarterback, which all these teams, all these people always tell you to do so, and then you don't do it, and it's like, that's the whole purpose, ain't it? So I do think the benching I was like, the benching can be a good thing because Bryce will get to sit, chill out. I was like, try to get himself calmed or whatever to see they can. I was like, he'll be back. Unless the Panthers just go on a winning streak, he'll be back. But I do think that just like, hey, let Andy Dalton take these hits. Let Andy Dalton get the offense going, get the chemistry, get the ball rolling, and then we'll sort of see it from there. But worst case scenario, what do you do with Bryce Young? Because now I was like, guess what? You're not going to get anything with him. You're over here looking at another top pick to where you might have to make a decision. Do we keep Bryce Young or do we go ahead and move on? Now, with that moving on, the part that's scary is because they haven't showed anything worth a damn that it's like, oh, it's Bryce Young's fault. We need it. This ain't like the Chicago Bears thing where it was like Justin Fields and Caleb Williams. This isn't what that is, because it's like Justin Fields did not show enough to them to stay and get the money. Bryce is not on that type of contract yet. But at the same time, is it Bryce Young not showing you enough? Or is it the squad itself? The problem is that somebody like Tepper is going to basically say he's not getting it done. Just like those coaches wasn't getting it done. Just like those players wasn't getting it done. Just like those quarterbacks before ain't getting it done. Get me another quarterback. And I'll tell you right now, I was like, if sheduersanders is the first quarterback, his ass ain't going to Carolina. He'll go to Carolina if he get number one. But he ain't going to Carolina at the same time. Now, Bryce Young, I was like, I don't know what you could really get from him. I was like, Trey Lance went for a fourth. So I was like, you might be able to get a third or a second, depending on the kind of team. And I do think there is places that he can go as well too, or whatnot. But I think it depends on the team. I was like, a needy team. To be honest, I don't see a needy team really ponying up as much. I really feel like a more contenderish type of team might actually give you a bigger pick, because it's probably going to be late and it's a project, so where it's not the same thing where it's like a team that needs a quarterback. You would think that you would get a lot from them, but they don't. But that means they probably pick a high in the draft where they could pick their own quarterback and just start over. So anyway, it sucks that Bryce got benched, but while I do think it was needed, it ain't the guy's fault. It ain't the guy's fault for all the bad play that he did have. I was like, I'm not gonna put it on him for all that, because I was like, for all of those easy gimme throws that, yes, it should show us what he does have, there's probably like 70 other plays that you could just be like, he ain't have no hope in surviving that situation right there. Like, yeah, I was like, yo, because sometimes he just be taking hits where it's just like, that's crazy. But anyway, what do y'all think about Bryce getting benched? I was like, I don't even have to ask if you agree that it's Tepper's fault. I know it's Tepper's fault. But what do you think the GM plays in all this, and how much of the coaching you think plays in this as well too? But anyway, let me know. Anyway, peace. I'm out.